data. What is data? A lot of people, when they think of data, they think of pie charts, bar charts, XY curves plotted on a piece of paper. They think of tables and tables of numbers with lots of decimal points, and that's what a lot of people think about when they think about data. That's not the only kind of information we can get, and it's not the only thing that we can use in order to make sense of the world. In fact, sometimes the best information we get doesn't come from things like that. So let's say hypothetically, I make baby food, and there's a horrible thing out there, and I add a component to my baby food to fight the big bad thing that's out there. All right, I'm going to add this to my food, and it's an emergency, so the government has given it the blessing of you can do this. Now, let's say that, because it's a mandatory thing, they're trying to get all the babies to take it. They're really pushing hard. They're not letting parents keep their babies unless they give them this food, something silly like that, right? If in that environment, the food maker, we'll call them Appley Applesauce. Let's say that Appley Applesauce doesn't want to get sued, so they appeal to the government and say, hey, we'll make this stuff for you, but no lawsuits. And the government says, okay. Why no lawsuits? Is it because Appley Applesauce doesn't guarantee the safety of this ingredient that they're adding to the applesauce? I mean, I think it's a fair question. The fact that they want immunity from liability is a data point. It's a data point of one, but it's a very important fact, right? They want immunity. They don't want to get sued over this in case it hurts people, right? That's a kind of data that doesn't fit on a bar chart or a pie chart or an XY splatter curve or whatever, right? That doesn't fit into that kind of data paradigm. Let's say that Appley Applesauce gets sued for their research into this ingredient they added to Appley Applesauce, and they go to the court and say, yeah, we'll tell you, but not for 75 years. Well, that would be weird, wouldn't it? Like, what? Why would you want to not disclose for 75 years? And there's a number in that data point, but the fact of the number is when we're all dead, right? When all the adults are dead, then we'll release the information, right? Because in 75 years, anyone who calls themselves an adult right now is likely, not going to raise a ruckus in 75 years, right? It's a data point that doesn't fit onto the chart, but it's an important data point. Let's say that Appley Applesauce here again is making another thing they want to give to children, but it's there have been rumors of an issue with one of the ingredients in Appley Applesauce, and so the CDC decides to help Appley Applesauce out, and they conduct a study in Georgia, and this study comes back, and the investigators who commissioned the study, they talk to their bosses. They all sit down in a room and they hold a shredding party, and they throw out all the data, except for one guy saved his data because like, this is not right, this does not sit well with me, I'm going to save this stuff. And he turns whistleblower, and he's currently still working at the CDC with whistleblower status, having had his career sideline. He's in some back office until he retires, right? Because he's not doing the sexy research anymore. He's on the back bench because he turned whistleblower, right? Still has his job, whistleblower protection, but he's not really doing what he got into the field of pharmaceutical medical research for. He's not doing that anymore. He's just sitting pushing papers around until retirement, right? It really doesn't matter what the study said, does it? I mean, we'd like to know, but the fact that they held a shredding party after they got the results of this study, after studying it for safety in children, like that's a fact. Again, it doesn't fit on the spreadsheet, right? Like what do you do with that data point on a spreadsheet? You can't compute the standard deviation of that data point, right? There are a lot of things like this. It's not limited to the medical stuff. I mean, let's say that Big Bird got uppity and he started talking at the podium about not liking the way society was going, and he wanted to change some things. And while he was there at the podium one day, someone popped him. No more Big Bird, right? And let's say in the aftermath of that, nothing anyone was saying made sense. And one of the first things they did is they washed down the crime scene. Like they didn't collect any data, they didn't do forensics, they just washed it. Just washed the pavement. All the evidence down the drain. Again, not a data point, but kind of a data point, right? Let's say that two really big birds crash into two really tall buildings in New York City about 25 years ago. And these really big birds spontaneously burned themselves to the point that they melted steel, despite the fact that birds can't burn that hot. And these buildings then came down in pancake collapses. The engineers said, "Oh, well, they were designed to collapse that way." Okay, but how did the steel girders melt to that temperature? It's not a data point, but it's a data point. And then what about that other building, number 7 there? No Big Bird crashed into that one. Why did it collapse in exactly the same manner several hours later? We have been gifted with common sense, pattern recognition. Talk to a child. Talk to a child about, don't traumatize your child, but talk to your child about something in the world that doesn't make sense to them, right? Something that they've got questions about, and they'll point out your logical inconsistencies. If you've got a child between 5 and 12, you'll probably get some really good questions out of that kid about how the world works and why it's this way and why it's that way. And you start to, shrug and give dumb adult answers. Well, that's the way it is. It's the way our society works. It's just, get used to it, kid. Like your ability to offer common sense diminishes as you're talking to this child who's got pure common sense. They might be missing some information. They might not have enough information to make a logical conclusion, but their questions totally make sense, right? Adults have lost that ability by and large by the time they graduate high school. It's really alarming. We've accepted so much propaganda sitting in classrooms that we can't do what I would consider common sense. People can't add people can't add 2 and 2 and get 4, or they can't see that 3 plus x equals 4 and fill in x because the information's missing. They won't fill it in, even though you've got, 3 over here, the plus sign over here, and a 4 over here. They can't compute x because it wasn't given to them. Oh, you're just making assumptions, you will hear. That's not an assumption, it's a calculation. It's a calculation that anybody can do until they've had that beat out of them. I mean, how are we going to fix this? How are we going to take this ship headed straight for an iceberg and turn it a little bit? How do we do this? We need to recover our sense making, the part of our sense making that isn't based on pie charts, the part of our sensing, our sense making that doesn't rely on 20 data points and an average and a standard deviation to compute whether or not the result is significant. That kind of useful, incredibly useful math doesn't fit every scenario. I mean, here I am talking to you with my cell phone over the internet. You can probably see me on the other side of the world if you cared to listen in. That's amazing. That's a result of the left brain, or excuse me, the right brain. No, left brain. The left brain doing the heavy calculation, heavy lifting. Figuring out what you can use these ores for, figuring out electricity, figuring out optics, like all that stuff. Incredibly useful. I'm not bashing it, but I am saying it's not the only tool in the toolbox, and we've been ignoring half of our brain by relying on it so heavily. We got the other half of our brain. There was a book that was popular when I was young. I never read it. It was called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain, which was to be drawing from, like, using it, right? People are using the left side over and over and over again. It has made tremendous progress in bomb making, drone making, dam building, nuclear bomb making, nuclear energy making, solar powers, wind powers, geothermal powers, paper plants, sawmills. Like, it's an incredibly useful part of our brain, but we've been using it exclusively. We've stopped using the other side of our brain, which cares about our impacts on people, our detrimental impacts on people as we use these technologies. The part of our brain that says, well, maybe I shouldn't make money doing this because if I make money doing this, a lot of people are going to get hurt. There's another side of the brain that should be part of our decision-making process and our sense-making process, and often we just ignore because it's not logical. Well, I can make more money like this. I can, why would I do it that way? I would lose money, right? If I did it that way, I'd go out of business. I wouldn't have a thneed maker business anymore. I need to make thneeds in order to put food on my table for my kids, right? We don't self-regulate very well. We're very fond of having a government regulate for us. We want to put representatives in there, and we want to put law enforcers in there, men with guns, in order to force compliance with the magical notions that we have of how we can fix the world. That's a reaction to, that's a response to the fact that for a very, very long time, I mean centuries, millennia, we've had people who value the left side of the brain so much more than the right side that they are willing to hurt their fellow man to make a buck, to improve their status in the community, to improve their own sense of power and worth. Those people don't regulate themselves. We've decided that, oh, well, we're going to regulate it with government. That's how we will regulate this stuff. And what we do when we do that is we outsource our sovereignty to this government monster that we created. It is incredibly irresponsible because that monster can be bought by the very people we're hoping to protect ourselves from. We've got it all screwed up because we are so left brain focused. I'm using this left right brain because I was just watching some Ian McGilchrist. I highly recommend him. He did a lecture very recently. I think it was recently. Ian McGilchrist talking with Matthias Desmet. I recommend it. I will put a link to it. But I watch a little more Ian McGilchrist, and he's very big on the right-left brain dichotomy right now. There are other people who have been talking about that for a long time. I mean, Indian and Chinese mystics wanting to do more with the right side of the brain. Carl Jung, I don't know if he stated explicitly, the side of the brain, but reading his stuff, he's talking about intuition. He's talking about doesn't feel right. He's talking about accepting the wisdom of the universe and the patterns of sense making that come quite naturally to us, but do not lend themselves to logical cause and effect thinking in the way that we use it, where we can see and measure the cause and the effect. This is old thinking. It used to be common sense. It's easily called superstitious. It's so easy to dismiss this stuff as mere superstition. I would encourage you not to just go there. It's easy to just call it assumptions. And you have to be careful that you are not stepping outside of what is actually plausible, right? But assuming that a corporation is out to make money is more than plausible. Assuming that most billionaires will knee-jerk act out of their own self-interest, that's not crazy conspiracy thinking, right? We're being gaslit hard by people who want to control sense making and limit it to pie charts and spreadsheets and XY scatters, right? The people who want to limit sense making to that kind of stuff control those institutions that generate those graphs. They own the universities. They own the government agencies. They own the third-party consultant businesses. They can buy doctors, they can buy politicians, they can buy anyone they want because they've got more money than God. And when it doesn't work out for them, when they can't actually buy you out, when they get so frustrated trying to nudge and maneuver and all this other stuff, when they just get sick of you, they hire someone to just get rid of you. That has happened over and over again in our human history as well. That we can't wrap our heads around this is because, one, fundamentally, I think most of us want to think of ourselves as good people and can't fathom the amount of evil it takes to turn someone into someone who would do this kind of stuff. And two, we've had our common sense beat out of us by our school system. We've had our own curiosity beat out of us by our school system that insists on memorization rather than exploration. That's all I got right now. Data and sense making. And the limits of data, I guess, or the limits in when we only consider certain kinds of things data. We've got more information than that, guys. Have a good one.